Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 160 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and this week we're coming to you from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We have another great guest today. I'm very happy to have Jennifer Thomas on the podcast today, who is the market president at South State Bank here in Gaston County. However, that might be the smallest reason, I don't know if that's good English or not, but that having her on today. Jennifer and I have been friends for a long time, and she has shown a commitment to our community over the years. So I'm looking forward to hearing about her leadership and community journey. Jennifer, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
That's a lot of J's, right?
It was, and I'm not great at English anyway. So,
that's okay.
If you listen to tomorrow's episode, you'll hear that I'm not great at English, even when I'm trying to read something. So, Jennifer, would like to get right to it. So just, we start off with that classic, simple question. So just tell us about yourself, anything you'd like to share for our listeners.
So, like yourself, born and raised here in Gaston County. I know. Makes Gaston great.
That's right.
Come back. So, Ashbrook grad, go Greenway. Gaston College grad, Belmont Abbey grad. And so I'm married to a gentleman that I've known since I was literally in the 6th grade. The running joke is that with my friends, I'm the only person who can go to the store and get a sun drop and cheese crackers and a husband.
Wow.
That's where we reconnected.
That's legit Gaston County right there.
Legit when you throw the sun drop in, right?
Yeah.
Legit. So anyways.
Throw some Ari's barbecue, you'd be set.
Yeah. Tree story.
Oh my, that's not far from here.
I was just about to say, I haven't had breakfast. Hear my stomach rumble. It's not the train. But we've been married for 16 years. Together we have 4 kids, 2 boys. Of course, they don't like when I call them the boys because, 29 and 25, and then 2 bonus daughters who are 29 and 24. And then we have together 3.5 little grandhumans.
Oh, wow.
My oldest.
I don't think I knew that.
Really? Yeah.
I knew about the kids, but I didn't know about the grandkids.
We like them better. Maybe we should.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that. I think that's common knowledge, because you can do whatever you want and then send them home, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. I think everybody knows that.
They're a lot of fun. So the half is my oldest son and his wife are expecting a little boy in November.
Oh, wow.
And all we have are boys. And then I had boys. And so my running joke is that clearly God doesn't trust me with a girl. Fingers are crossed.
I'm not sure what to think about that.
I know. Fingers are crossed. Jake, if you're listening, it's on you, buddy.
Mm-hmm. And we have a off the wall connection through that with families that we are friends with too. So,
right.
So that's interesting, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, that's for another podcast.
Yes. So again, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about, and because everything else will be about our community, your career, and so we'd like to start. Just how did the journey here, your line of, we phrase it, what inspired you to get into your line of work? And my experience is that sometimes there really is no, I wasn't inspired to get into this necessarily type of work. It's been wonderful. But how would you talk about that? What on the career standpoint brought you into this world and got you here with this pinnacle of being on Gaston's Great podcast?
So first of all, probably by accident.
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of people, yes.
Right. Now, my mom would say that she knew I was going to be in banking of some sort when I was a little girl. So when I was a little girl, I would get these little journals, and you probably have seen them where you have the little journal and the little key that you're supposed to write your deep secrets.
Yeah.
Well, I used them to make loans and take deposits.
Oh, that's funny.
So I would line up
I don't think I was doing that when I was young.
Yeah, I would line up my little stuffed animals, and apparently I would make loans and take deposits. So if you go back that far, I probably was predestined to be a banker of some sort. But my real passion in life was I thought I was going to be a Broadway dancer.
Okay.
Grew up as a dancer. Realized I was a little too short to be a Broadway dancer, believe it or not.
I wouldn't know that, so okay.
And so then it turned into, I graduated from school, was going to Gaston, and I just needed gas money.
Yeah.
And you know Gordon Quarles.
Oh, yeah.
So Gordon Quarles gave me my first opportunity. And every time I see him, I tell him this. I remember sitting across the desk, very similar to this is what it felt like. And he's telling me about all these great things that you can have in banking, such as a pension and a 401k. And I was like, I really don't care. This is a job that's going to get me through college. I need gas money and clothes money, and that's really all I care about. 35 years later, Gordon, when I see him, thank you so much for that opportunity. That pension and 401k are really going to come in handy. So that's how I got into banking. And the reason I stayed is because, one, I've always been a kind of a math nerd. I love numbers, so that made sense. And then I didn't realize it, but I was really good at relationships, and that came naturally.
Sure.
And obviously a big part of what you do is building relationships and having trust. I was at BB&T at that time, just a great organization. And one of the things they did was make certain that they gave back to their employees and they helped them be fulfilled and grow. And they did that. And so to our conversation we were having earlier, I remember being a teller. That's where I started. I started as a teller, on the second shift. And there was this gentleman who would come in, visit the branches. He was over all the branches and the commercial team. And that time he was called a city executive, which is the equivalent of a market president today.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I don't know what that person does, but that title sounds really cool. And if I ever get that job, it'd be great. So it's been pretty amazing that, 30-something years later, I sit here and I hold that title. My journey has been a lot more like a jungle gym versus a trajectory like most of your commercial bankers, market presidents. I've been everything from a teller, managed a branch. I led the head of marketing for 3 regions. I was a wealth advisor, and now I am the market president.
Yeah, we've talked about that before on different episodes about, we would love to get out of school and there's this just straight line path, right? But, it's up and down and sideways and to get to where, at least that's my experience with most, including my own experience.
A much better banker, I think, because I carry with me because even though my primary client today is a business and business owner, well, they're people.
Sure they are.
And so being able to relate from a personal banking perspective and wealth management and then business. So I think that it's really helped me be in my opinion, now my client might have a different opinion, but I think that it's made me a much more well-rounded banker in the space I'm in, that I don't just talk about one thing. I can be multifaceted. And that's been beneficial.
Yeah, well, listen, we're all about relationships, and we won't get into the specifics, but we're all about relationships in the banking world too, right? But we go back, actually, GSM goes back to Southern National.
You do?
Yeah. I remember my first debit card was actually a Southern National debit card, back when ATMs were like brand new.
I was there for that Southern National BB&T.
Yeah, there were no.
And you'll think about things and you say, man, if I would have just moved forward with that idea, where I'd be today. And I remember ATM cards coming out, which we thought was the coolest. But then I remember thinking, man, if I could just use this ATM to make purchases someplace.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, precursor to the debit card.
Yeah.
No.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even remember any of that. Do you even carry money, Rachel?
Do you carry a debit card?
When I say money, I say cash. I mean cash money. Yeah. Okay. Well, see, I still do. I'm just too old school or maybe scared. I don't know. I'm just that guy. Sorry. All right. So listen, I appreciate just hearing about a bit about the journey, because you're right. I mean, it's rarely, as you said, it's really this straight path. But it's also, it's good to hear, sticking with an industry, the hard work, the work ethic, and here you are, in that position that you just said you were seeing this individual, however many years ago, right, at BB&T, and now here you are. So it's interesting. So, we love talking about leadership and community and tying that into our careers and business, and because ultimately, we're big on that here. And so, what kind of, looking back on that whole time period, on this path? What leadership lessons have you learned? And then we'll kind of get in and take that next to, leadership advice you've gotten from someone maybe along the path, just anything like that you can talk about and share.
I think for me, and I was talking with someone just yesterday, unfortunately, sometimes the best lessons I've learned have been through mistakes I've made. So I guess it's one of those things, as long as you learn from it and you don't do
Absolutely.
it again,
Yes.
it was a good experience. So a lot of the leadership lessons I have learned, I think really have been through some of my experiences. Probably early in my career, I had a tendency to react and speak a little too quickly. So I have really worked hard over a number of years to really stop and think before I either react or share my comments. I think it's been good for me from a leadership perspective because I have a little bit of a hot head at times, and so I had a tendency to want to just say what I think, and that's not always appropriate.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the other thing is, and a piece of advice I have given to my own son as well as others is, and I've heard others say it, so I'm not making this up, but for the best advice I think you could give is you were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So you need to listen twice as much as you speak.
Yeah.
And that really has worked well for me. And again, in my business, because I should be the one who is listening the most. When I'm sitting in front of a client and I'm asking them what's important to them, it needs to be about them, not about me. So I think that's been important. And then the other thing is, as I told Jake, go find somebody with the gray hair in your industry and make friends with them. They'll teach you a lot, and just listen to how they do business. Not saying that you have to emulate and you have to do what they do, but it gives you a great perspective. It allows you to expand your experiences through their experiences at a much quicker pace. So I think those are some of the leadership things I've learned along the way.
Yeah. So a couple things I heard there. The last one was humility. You have to have a little humility to go interact with those more experienced people, but you also have to have the humility to accept what they're saying, right? And I was younger. I thought I knew everything already. Yeah. And to your point about if you're doing anything, in my opinion, you're trying anything, you have any ambition, you are going to make mistakes, and that is I have learned the hard way. That's the best teacher. It'd be nice if the best teacher was learning from other people's mistakes. And you can do that by talking to them and being around them.
Right.
Gosh, when I was younger, I was just too stubborn, ignorant to take that advice and pay attention enough to see that, I just pay attention, I can learn something, right? But no, you got to learn it for yourself. It's just so, as long as it's nothing catastrophic, that is the best teacher without a doubt.
That is true. That's what I've always said. Don't do things that we can't help unwind. But, sometimes it's okay you make mistakes. I think when we're younger, even if you see it, I can remember seeing others or hearing about others' mistakes, and I think to myself, that would never happen to me. I'm not going to do that. So maybe it is that. Maybe it's that immaturity when you're younger, too, to just think that will never happen to me.
Yeah,
a lot of different.
That's probably fair. That's one of these last questions that we like to ask, is we can touch on that probably a little bit when, about our younger selves and looking back and this. So it's interesting. So another big connection that we've had for many years is just community, and I guess officially as of yesterday, you are the immediate past president of Gastonia East Rotary.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Greg and I were talking. Greg and I both been president of our club, and gosh, when we did our transition meeting, I was like, wow, it's been 13 years since I became immediate past president. I was stunned. I was 2011, 2012 was I was the president of the Rotary Club. So boy, it goes quick. But so many other things between the GBA and Gaston Together, or just other organizations, and you've always been leading a lot of those things. I know companies and organizations you've been involved with, sponsoring awards and events, and just kind of talk about how does community kind of play into your professional career and just kind of your general mission for our community here?
Yeah. So I think I'm blessed in what I do, that the company I work with and have worked with, so even my prior employer, believes in community. And so they allow me and afford me the opportunity to be involved in all things within the community, which twofold is, in my opinion, it plays into my why. So, I think I've shared this with you before, but I chose to come back to Gaston County. I love living here. I loved watching it grow. And selfishly, I want my 4 children, and they're 3.5 little humans, to want to be here. And I don't want them to, obviously, if they want to go elsewhere, that's okay. Love it, but that's okay. But I don't want them to feel as if they have to leave Gaston County to have a better life. I want them to see that you can have so many great things right here in Gaston County. And I don't think that happens when people aren't involved.
Yeah. You don't see it as much. You don't get to see the why and what's really going on.
Well, and you help forge that path. Like, I try to be involved in as many things as I can, but I find that I'm involved in things that I have passion for. So children and youth and education and reading and all of those things. That I was just talking before I left with my assistant, Bridget.
Yeah.
And we were talking about education and the importance of children having a great foundation by the time they're in 3rd grade. Because if you don't, those years after that are really difficult.
Yeah, we when I was younger, and even having children, I didn't realize that how much is formed in a done deal when they're young.
Yes. Yes. And
I might have been a different parent, possibly, if I had known some of that.
Something tells me your kids have all turned out really well. So something tells me you were a good parent.
They have a good mother. They
do have a good mother. So that's true. And so I try to be involved in all of those things because, again, you want that. They're our future. They're our next leaders. And so you want them to have a great foundation. So that's important to me. And again, I want Gaston County to be, when you just look at the demographics and how much we've grown, people are moving here.
They are.
And they are moving here for a reason. And I think it's the things that we talk about. I was telling someone earlier, and we may talk about this, but when I get up to go to work every day, I get up and I'm excited because I love the people I work with internally and externally. And even when I'm doing, a board event or a community function or a gala or something to that, yes, I'm usually there from a business perspective, but because I'm there with all my friends, it's very social. And so it's a lot of fun. So it never feels like work for the most part.
Well, I think, I would put you in the category I kind of try to put myself in. I think we're total homers for Gaston County, right? And so when I would hear somebody say, well, yeah, I'm going to leave Gaston County, when I said, I'm just like, what? Why would you do that? But I get it. I don't want to, I got to be careful, right, with my projecting my views and attitudes on everything. And this is not necessarily the views of GSM or Gaston's Great podcast.
It is interesting. You hear a lot of those say that, and they may leave, but a lot of times they return.
Yeah.
Because I think they see the things we just talked about. They've gone someplace else and they don't get that maybe where they were. And so they come back. It's nice to, go to dinner and run into old friends, or go to the club, and the country club, by the way, and run into friends. So
good clarification.
Yes, right. Because, that could go a lot.
We're here in downtown. We are here in downtown Gaston.
Right.
Even Rachel laughed at that one, huh?
Right.
That's pretty.
And that's why you need a mic over there.
So, even sticking with a community professional career, looking back, is there something that just stands out? You're like, wow, I know you're not big on talking about yourself or accomplishments, but something that you're proud of being involved with, or proud that while you were at this particular position, something that occurred, or just something that you look back and you're like, wow, that was terrific, event or something I was involved with.
I think there are many of them. I'll say personally. Personally, I would say my opinion, my most important accomplishment have been my children.
Sure.
And I think most people would say that, but I'm a little biased. They're mine. And then professionally, I still, Natalie and I were talking about this the other day. I still show up in a room where now I'm viewed as one of the leaders, and I don't feel like I should be there. I just don't feel like
we all have some of that imposter syndrome. Yeah. For real. I remember the first day I showed up at Rotary, I was like, I'm looking around like, I don't belong here.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's
then a few years later I'm president.
Yeah, well, that's because they found a
homer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, somebody who would. So I think just being able to show up and be involved in so many different organizations within the community are things I'm proud of. I can remember, this is going back many, many years, one of the things from a professional perspective that really is in my industry that I'm really proud of is, when I drive around and I see buildings, cars, or walk through a facility and I see equipment, it really brings to life what I do.
Yeah.
What I do is more than just sheets of paper. It's people's livelihood. It's contributing to the economy. It serves a bigger purpose. And so,
kind of like this building we're sitting in right now.
Yes. When I see those tangible things, I'm like, what I do matters.
Yeah.
If I were not here, then, maybe a GSM wouldn't have this facility.
Oh, that's a great point.
And there are so many people outside of just Joel and Stephen Long that depend on this facility. And so to me, I'm like, wow, the impact I have, and maybe that's a little embellishing of myself. I don't know. But the impact that I can have on the greater economy is...
Well, I think the day-to-day stuff, we don't realize the number of people that we touch. And what you just described is, you're correct, that just helping us move to this facility, you're touching the lives of coworkers here, customers that we interact with. I mean, that's it goes beyond just a little, your office over there, wherever the office is, right? I mean, that's a great point.
I think that for me is one of the things that I'm the most proud of in some of my profession, is just knowing that I have a bigger purpose, both from a community perspective, hoping I can help continue to shape Gaston County, and then from an economic perspective, and what I do helps so many, that multiplier of that.
Sure. Oh, that's terrific. So what, there's something that stands out you think of that was a key factor, something that you look at and say, wow, this was an individual advice, your personal work ethic, education, that kind of the key factor in your business success to this point?
I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of great mentors along the way. Probably the one that really sticks out the most to me was a gentleman that I worked with, 25 years ago. Ricky Brown. He was our regional president at BB&T at that time. You probably remember that name. And he saw in me what I didn't see in me.
Yeah, that's good.
And
which is often the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still have the voicemail. He called me one day and said, hey, listen, I think you're destined to do bigger and better things. Here's an opportunity I'd like you to consider. And it was an opportunity that I would never have set my sights on. And so because of that vote of confidence, I think it just opened up so many other things that I was willing to try to do things that maybe I wouldn't have done before. So he was a great mentor. And then just from a personal perspective, I think many of us would say that this is the truth. My parents have been my biggest mentors. They are just humble, salt of the earth humans. They really taught me work ethic. They taught me the value of relationships, doing what you say, and giving to others without the expectation of anything back. I think that's the true essence of giving. They definitely have instilled a strong sense of family. And then, from the standpoint of just, which again played into what I do, is your sense of ethics and integrity. don't ever compromise those, especially for any short-term gain, because it'll get you in the long run. Once you compromise your ethics, then it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, we want to be able to.
You want to be able to trust your banker, right?
Yeah, and sleep at night too, right? Something we talk about here. Listen, we make plenty of mistakes, but I think for the most part, our teams, myself and our teams, go home and put our heads down, and we know we didn't intentionally do anything. To your point, right? Yeah. Anything unethical or lacking integrity. It's just now. Sometimes they can appear that way because we screw up so bad, but that's not the case.
Mistakes happen, accidents happen.
Yeah.
Own them, move on from them. Not doing anything with, malicious intent. I think you're doing the right thing, and you can always lay your head down at night.
I think you have to put yourself in positions though for someone to see that in you, like you talked about with Ricky Brown, right? You were doing something that made him think, well, of course Jennifer can handle that, and even if you didn't see it in yourself, so something was occurring. You were doing something that made someone recognize that. So what's next for you, your work, industry? We haven't really had anybody on talking about the banking world. It's a world that a lot of people don't understand. So yeah, just kind of what's next.
Yeah. So for me, from a personal perspective, and it's interesting that you asked this question because I had the same question yesterday with my boss. And he was asking me, what's next? Okay. I said, to be honest, I don't have a next. That makes sense. It's not that I'm complacent. It's not that I don't have drive and desire. I love what I do. And I love the people I do it with. I love the community I do it in. And so it's hard to believe I've been in this industry for 35 years for somebody who's just 27.
Yeah, about earlier I asked about when you said Ashbrook, because, Janet and I both went to Ashbrook. Right. I almost started to ask what year did I said, well, I'm not going to ask that.
Janet and I went to school together. So I've been in this industry for 35 years.
Which that's translated that they're much younger than I am.
That's true.
If you were wondering, Rachel, I graduated way before they did at Ashbrook High School.
That's true. So for me, professionally, if the right opportunity, and I don't know what that would be, would present itself, that I would be interested in having conversation, but I'm not to that point where I'm seeking anything anymore.
Right.
I am happy where I am. And again, I feel like I make a difference from a business perspective, a community perspective, a family perspective. So as long as I can continue to love what I do and the people I do it with, if something comes along within our organization that they feel I'd be a good fit for or serve a better purpose, certainly I'd be open to entertaining that. I don't know what that would be right now.
Right.
I am maybe I will use the word content. I'm just very content in what I do.
Well, what's going on? Let's talk about the industry in general. Is there, what's the big thing coming down the line? Because I don't know, talk about HVAC, we can talk about it all day. But what do y'all see as issues in the future or big things that are coming? The fact that we were just talking about debit cards and not carrying cash anymore. Right. I mean, to me, that's a big deal. Yes, but that's been going on for quite a while. So
it has. I think that our industry has significantly changed since I joined it 35 years ago. I mean, I can remember when, if you lived in South Carolina and you happen to be in North Carolina, we are just, 10 minutes from the line here, you couldn't make a deposit.
That's interesting.
Right? So that's the industry I started in.
And now our technicians can take a picture of a check with their phone.
Yes.
With their phone or iPad, and it can be deposited.
Yes.
That's wild.
It is. So to see all that has evolved from 35 years ago to today, but I think we're going to continue to see much evolution. I mean, technology is changing, AI. I think you think about banking, you're like, well, how does that make a difference?
Right.
Like a significant difference. Probably the biggest thing that we deal with today is fraud.
Right.
And again, been in the industry 35 years, and it is the worst I have ever seen it. And people who are...
Is that because of the electronic evolution,
Yes.
digital evolution of it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I think it is the evolution of technology. Back when you would write me a check before, I didn't have really any way to alter that check necessarily. People would go out and make counterfeit checks. But today, you don't have to make a counterfeit check. You can alter that check. So you have a lot of that.
That's wild, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have on top.
Have you ever written a check? Sorry, I've been interrupting you.
No,
It just came to mind.
I remember my oldest daughter had to write a check, first one she ever wrote, and she was just so beside herself because she didn't know how to fill it out, and she came in to ask me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have failed you as a parent, as a banker. You don't even have to write a check."
Yeah.
So, but I think that a couple of the other things that we're seeing from the industry from a fraud perspective is related to technology in the fact of we all carry, in essence, a computer in our phone, in our pocket.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that we call them fraudsters, but that fraudsters can do with the phone. I mean, they can call you and it makes it look and sound like they're calling from GSM and that it sounds like you. And they even have the ability to, if I were to say, well, FaceTime me, they can filter that out and it looks like I'm talking to you. So, we're seeing that. As a matter of fact, South State, we were just having some conversations with some clients that were being victims of individuals calling and pretending to be with South State and, asking, we're going to send you this link and we need you to do this. And so when your bank calls, you automatically think, oh, it's fine. And I think that's the other thing is that we have such a high sense of urgency and everybody's moving at such a fast pace. Sometimes you don't, like if you would stop and think about, now, why am I getting this or why are they asking this, then you probably wouldn't do it. But again, I think we all move so fast. We're carrying so many things at one time that it's like, okay, let me do that, get that off my plate and let's move on. And before you know it, it's done and it's gone.
Yeah.
So I think
it happens so quick.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is. It happens fast. So I think fraud is a thing in our industry and regulations always changing. So depends on sometimes who might be in office as to what way you lean. I think we'll continue to see that. I think you're always going to continue to see consolidation, mergers and acquisitions. You just have to. I mean, with what it takes to continue to operate in the industry, you have to find those efficiencies. So
our industry has just been last 5 years, man, the private equity involved and just
Sure.
I mean, listen, we're getting communication every single day.
Oh yes, I'm sure
about that. We're going to make it the greatest thing ever.
Yes.
Like it's old, but yeah, to your point.
Yeah. So it'll be, again, I think the first 35 years, I've seen a lot of changes, but I suspect over the next, let's call it 10, I'll probably see 2 to 3 times as many changes just because things make, and there's so many, when I joined the bank in the industry, you went to the bank. Well, now you can go to a lot of different entities and get the same. It doesn't have to be a bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, think about a Venmo, for example. You don't have to necessarily have brick and mortar banks any longer.
See, I don't do any of that stuff. Do you do Venmo, Rachel? Or what else is there?
What?
I mean, Janet does. Janet does it. Yeah, I don't do any of that stuff.
PayPal. So it's amazing.
I said, Janet, can you Venmo somebody so and so because I owe them money or something? She takes care of it. Takes care of it.
The same to me.
I have no idea how to do that.
I need you to Venmo something.
And frankly, I don't want to.
Yes.
So at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Another thing, I think, is this happening in your industry where things are happening so fast in ours? I'm involved in some, industry organizations, and then all of a sudden you feel like, oh gosh, we're behind. We can't keep up. But some of that is not. It's unfounded anxiety, so to speak. But it is happening so fast that, do you find as a banker that you're like, okay, if we don't do this, then we're going to get left behind?
Yes.
It's weird. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. Yeah.
Yes.
That's just a Stephen overreaction. Ultimately, a lot of times.
And do you find that it's really driven sometimes because you're looking at an organization that's in your industry, but maybe a much larger?
Maybe, yeah.
And so I think we see a lot of that.
Yeah.
When
it's always greener. Everybody else is better, and we got to catch up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is just not. It's not logical
not
thinking.
Always the case.
Yeah, it's not logical thinking.
Not greener.
It's completely unreasonable. But yeah. But of course, it's going to happen. It's bad. It's all bad. So I mean, I just like to hear, and we like to analyze and hear from other industries too, because sometimes we can get too focused on our little world. And you see that? I just bumped my nose on the microphone. I wonder if that made a noise. I don't think I've ever done that before. It's a first.
Yeah,
I just nosed the microphone. But we get so tunnel vision on what's going on in our industry, but there might be something good going on in another industry that we can learn from and take from. And so we kind of miss that sometimes. I even like going occasionally to a conference that's completely outside of the HVAC world, because we can be so old school and so kind of just behind technology, especially because AI is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we need to do something with AI. We have no idea what that means, but we need to do something with AI because everybody is doing
it. Yeah. What's the buzzword? It's what's the newest buzzword? And so I think that's that, and that you can fall victim. Now, I will say the one thing that I love the most about what I do is I do get the opportunity to hear from so many different industries.
That's probably true. Yeah, that's a good point.
With a lot of, this morning I could be sitting with HVAC. This afternoon I could be sitting with someone who, builds parts that goes on solar panels. And then the afternoon I might be with a doctor. So I think I get a good view of all industries. And I'll be quite honest, I think one of the things I am seeing across all industries is that they really are having the same challenges, the same concerns. What they do, the service they provide, the widget they make might be different, but the problems really are, and the concerns really are still the same.
Yeah, ultimately AI can be helpful. It can be a tool, but it's not going to solve, say, in our industry, the labor issue.
No, it's not.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it can help with some things, but let's just be honest. At the end of the day, we are still a people business.
Yeah.
People still want to do business with people. It's okay if you need, a quick credit card, be able to put that application in yourself, and you don't have to have communication. But if you're going to sit down and you're going to make a big decision, a financial decision for your business or a strategic decision for your business, I think you want to be eyeballs to eyeballs to somebody.
Most of the time, I agree. Yeah. On something that is that impactful and big decisions for sure.
So I don't think, for at least from what I do, my hope is, AI is not going to replace me. What it will do, it will help me, I think, do things that maybe take me a week to get done today, might be able to get done in a day.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
And that would be great for all concerned.
Yeah, right. Should be.
It'd be great for all concerned, But for the most part, I don't think that AI is going to be a big disruptor when you are in a relationship business.
Gotcha.
At least I hope not.
Okay, well, listen, I appreciate you sharing that a little bit about what's going on in your world. So before we kind of finish up with a few more specific questions you'd like to ask, is there anything I haven't asked, anything I should have asked, anything you'd like to share before we kind of start to land this plane? So you got other things to do besides sit here in their great conference room at GSM?
It's a nice conference room. I've got a matching paddle in my office as well.
Oh, yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
That was great to be involved in. Look at that. Yes. Look at the year on that.
I know. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And we have a new project we're working on.
Yeah.
So, no, I think we've covered a lot of different things.
Well, remember, this is a podcast about Gaston County and the area and why it's so great. And it's the question we like to ask is, so besides Jennifer Thomas, besides South State Bank, besides, just that in general, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
I think I go back to the things we talked about earlier. It's the people, it's the relationships. I live in Belmont, and we raised our children there. And I can remember when our kids were in middle school, and this was back the old middle school before they relocated. But on Friday afternoons, I'm going to use Jake as an example, but Jake and his group of friends, they would all go downtown Belmont, and they would kind of hit all the different stops. They might start at Sammy's for a Coke, and then they'd be up at the ice cream shop, and then they'd end up at the deli. Like, there's not many places that, as a parent, I would have felt okay with my children being by themselves. And all those store owners knew them. They knew who they belonged to, and they watched out for them. And they really enjoyed that as they're growing up. They felt like they had a little bit of independence, but they still had some oversight.
And they probably also knew that if anything was going on, that you would hear about it.
Oh, absolutely. And they still to this day are amazed that there is nothing that they can do that I don't know before I get home that evening. Yeah. So they learned that lesson, some of them the hard way.
I know not so much my mother, but my dad had the network going on.
Yes.
My dad would, he would bring something up later. I'd be like,
yes.
How did you know about that?
We know everything.
Well, this day and age, because, the phones and all that, I'm glad there were no, I'm not video and camera phones back in the day.
Right. So I think that just, again, my kids having that experience makes Gaston great. Being able to have truly that hometown feel and being close enough that if I want to go do something, big in Charlotte, if I want to go see Wicked when it comes at the end of the year, I can do that. But I don't have to deal with some of the
day to day. You don't have to go across the river if you don't want to. Yeah. No. I think that's a great point. Yeah, we're fortunate. I mean, it's not just geographic too. It's another reason why I like, this area so much. I mean, I take a family vacation and it's not very far to get to the coast or to the mountains or to whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons.
And if you're traveling, we got a great airport right here that's expanding and growing. So for that, I think that we have a lot of things to offer. I mean, we see it. People and industry are moving here, and I think they're doing it for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. All right. I touched on this question earlier, but and apparently this was just 7 years ago by your comment earlier. So knowing what you know now, Jennifer, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Yeah. So I think for me, what I would tell my 20-year-old self is don't be afraid to take the scary but calculated risk that seem like they're outside of your capabilities or ability, because the journey is going to be such a fun, enjoyable ride. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I think I've studied enough and read enough over the last, especially 15 years or so, maybe a little longer, that fear inhibits so many things and us from doing things that, gosh, just weren't that big a deal or wasn't as big an obstacle as we thought.
Paralysis.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, when we were talking earlier about my journey, a lot of those things that I did is I made moves, as I called it, like the jungle gym of my career. When somebody would come and approach me with, hey, you consider doing this? My first reaction was, no, that is so not something I can do. But then I'd step back and go, well, why not? Worst thing you could do is fail. Okay, but,
sometimes I've learned, especially in the community stuff, it depends on who's asking.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, I'll give you the perfect example when it was Barbara Voorhees who approached me about getting in line to be president of my Rotary Club. Barbara drove me to elementary school.
I was going to say, you can't tell Barbara.
Kurt and I go way back.
Yes.
We're still great friends now. But
great people.
But my first reaction was, I'm not ready for that. I'm not going to be able to handle that. The people who have already done it, there's no way I'm on that level. But then I thought, well, Barbara's not dumb.
Yeah.
She's been involved with a lot of things. If for some reason she thinks I can handle it, well, maybe I'm not such a doofus. It was great. It was a great experience.
Same.
I'm 24 years now into the Rotary Club of Gastonia. But if you told me on day one, all these things that I would do with the club, I said, no way. Same. So it's interesting. Yes. So those connections. Now the danger with that is you get a small group of people doing all those things, right? So that's
20 rule.
Yeah, that's a different discussion too. We got to be careful with that. But we have a lot of younger people that are getting involved. So it's nice to see that.
I think we have to be very diligent. And there's some things going on in the community that are being very diligent about and strategic about bringing that next generation along, because they're so smart and they're such capable. But
yeah, CEL through Gaston Together, the thing that Natalie did for their 50th, that was, I mean, because
feel no pressure when
Amy Anderson from here from our team was involved with that. So yeah, I think that just that little thing, you got 50 people all of a sudden think, wow, well maybe.
Yeah, if they think I'm capable, again, that person it's that reaching back and pulling the person behind you up as well, giving them that hand as well. Somebody did that for us.
So I'm gonna go straight to the next one of the last questions here. If you could have coffee or dinner or something with one historical person, who would it be and why?
So I think, and this is not a famous person by any stretch.
Don't say Joel, please.
Joel Long. Coffee. What? No. This would be my great-grandmother.
Okay.
On my dad's side, his mother's mother. I never met her. She passed away before I was born. But she and my great-grandfather, which I did meet, and he was the cutest little things. I can only imagine what she would have been like. But they immigrated here from Italy.
Okay.
Never known with the curls, right? And so obviously the current environment we're in, and to hear her story and their experiences and what that was like for them at that time, it'd be interesting to hear from her firsthand perspective. And then, of course, just to get
that leap of faith to come, right?
Seriously. I mean, talk about, it's one thing to take a new opportunity within an organization that you know somewhat about, but to leave your home country and move across the ocean to some place that not only you know nothing about, but you don't speak the language either.
Oh yeah,
I can't even begin to imagine.
Yeah, we can't
courage that takes. So I would love to have the opportunity to have, I guess it would be more espresso than just regular coffee, but espresso with her. And then the other one for me is he's still around, but if he by the chance hears this and wants to call me, I'd love to have coffee. I'd love to have coffee with Warren Buffett.
Oh, wow. Yeah. He's an interesting character.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. And the things that talk about our industry, the things that he has seen in his 95 years, and the wisdom and the energy that he still runs with is pretty amazing to me.
And at 95, how much he reads and still wants to learn as if,
correct.
Yeah, he spends at least what I've read about him and heard about him, he reads a lot of amount of time reading and learning every single day.
He does. He's been from the time he was a little person, he's been an avid reader and learner. And plus, he also lives by the motto of eat your dessert first, because you just never know. So I kind of like that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, Jennifer, this has been really good. So, any last words?
I love South State. It's a great organization. I have a lot of friends that I've worked with along the years that are there, and so it's like going home kind of a little bit. As far as Gaston County is concerned, we are able to service Gaston County from 5 of our branches, which I think for a bank of our size is pretty amazing, and just shows the commitment that the organization has in a community like Gaston County, and that is the truth. I mean, they really put a lot of faith in me, and they give me full autonomy to do what I want to do and what is best for the community, and they rely on me to say, hey, we need to do this, and we need to be involved in this. And if I have a client that, banking isn't, even though many people think, banking isn't just this little square little box. I mean, there are, things that are outside of those, kind of those norms, and being able to be an advocate for a client and knowing that I can help get them whatever it is they need done is important to me. And the organization gives me the autonomy to do that. And then they have the belief in my capabilities and what I've done for so long, and that I've done it the right way and the ethically way. And so, again, I think that I'm excited. I look forward to the next, somebody asked me the other day, well, when are you planning on retiring? And I was like, gosh, it's hard to believe that it's gotten here that quickly.
I'm not thinking about that at the moment personally, but
yeah, I mean, it's like
I've been asked to, and I'm like, I don't know.
we were talking to one of our children just last night about retirement. We're like, it gets here fast, but so for me, next 10, 15 years, I'm super excited as to what I can do for Gaston County and what I consider my friends, being AKA business owners in the market.
So I appreciate you sharing that, and I don't mind sharing that. We have a professional relationship also with Jennifer for many years. Maybe a short break in there. I'll just leave it at that. But it is, frankly, it is it is because of you. And you mentioned earlier about the relationships, and I want to go back a little bit. A couple of years ago, there was a huge event for our family and our company where Joel was presented with an award through the GBA. And what was cool about that night is you were sponsoring it. You introduced us, then I was able to introduce Joel, and that's just that's something that it's just unique, and it was. I won't forget that. Yeah. And I think even afterwards, I think I shared this with you. A friend, another local banker made the comment to me later. He goes, I want relationships with customers where, the way y'all looked at Jennifer, the way, something like, it was funny. Yeah. He was making light of it, but I think he was kind of serious. Yeah. It was just funny on the professional side when he made that. I was like, well, yeah, okay, I can see that. It was just nice.
It goes back to what I said earlier. Yeah. I view all of you as friends.
Yeah.
You're my friends, and I care about you all. And we are in a commodity business. I don't sell anything that's different than somebody else.
Yes, but
it's really how do I bring it to the table?
So it's the people that make the difference.
Yeah, how do I make your life easier? Because you're trying to run an HVAC business all day long. Trying to get Jen Thomas the financials she needs is not your top priority.
Yeah, I would also argue that the world we live in, though, it's not as hard as people make it. The fact that you respond to emails and pick up your phone.
Shouldn't be that makes me stand out, but it does.
It absolutely does.
Yeah,
I think it makes us stand out in our business too. Is we try to show up on time, we answer the phone, we have great people like Rachel that are on the team. It's just we're very fortunate.
We see it as the little things, but unfortunately in today's world, it really is the big things.
Yeah, we do get business all the time because we are the only ones that respond.
Yeah,
it's wild.
I know. Trust me, I know.
Yeah. So again, Jennifer, I appreciate everything that you do, and I appreciate how you serve the community, both personally and professionally. And so our community is better off because you're here and what you're doing. So I appreciate that greatly. So luckily for Jennifer, she's probably like, for heaven's sakes, can we wrap this up? We are gonna wrap this up. But I try to do either a book or podcast recommendation or a quote for the week or something, and I do try to be intentional. And I got a quote this week from Benjamin Franklin, and it kind of makes me think of you and others in our community. But he said, well done is better than well said. And I love Benjamin Franklin. He was involved in so many things, and there's a couple of great biographies about him that I would recommend, including his one he wrote himself. So I would recommend that. But I just love that quote because so many times, talk is cheap. You got to go out and do something besides just talk about it all the time. So, again, Jennifer, I appreciate your time.
Speak louder than words.
Absolutely. So, to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast. And please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please follow us on all our social media platforms. And as Rachel always reminds me, a good 5-star rating helps us get noticed, right? All right. So 5-star ratings. I know this episode is going to get nothing but 5 stars. Yeah. All right. Thanks again to Jennifer for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Rachel Cowart from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.